Oh, wow. Good afternoon and welcome to our discussion this afternoon at Desi Sisterhood. Dr. Dua has spent many years, she's a medically qualified doctor, and for the last 3 decades, people, 3 decades, she has helped as a wellness coach and as a doctor thousands of people find emotional and physical healing, as well as freedom from fear, anxiety, depression, and negative mindsets. And there's so much that we have to learn, so much that we have to really understand, so that we can be better parents, friends, spouses. We can just be better people when we can help people. And we can help people when we can understand the issues better. Thank you so much. It's so nice to have you join us. It's such a big topic, depression, that so often seen as an illness of the few. But I really believe that it's because it's been hidden by so many, and especially in cultures like ours. In India, it's the lid is very firmly placed around depression. So I wonder if you can just help explain the whole lift the lid a little bit of depression, what it really is, in order to help us understand depression better.
Yes. So the common idea of depression, which is the wrong idea, is that it's a kind of a weakness. It's a kind of a person shows that they're sad and they're just down. And so we can sometimes end up thinking that it's just maybe a personality problem, or it's just that they have a tendency to be negative. So we end up actually doing the wrong thing and trying to help people with actual depression. So we say things like, oh, cheer up, oh, be positive. But thanks to science, thanks to neuroscience, and especially with the ability to scan our brains, we now know, doctors now really understand that depression is actually a brain condition. And what they found is that actually there's some structural changes that happen in the brain, and I can go into the possible different reasons, but the end result is that when someone is diagnosed with clinical depression, a structural change has happened in the brain that results in them not being able to think clearly, not being able to think with any kind of hope for the future. They start to lose hope for the future.
Yes.
And so some of the symptoms...
You talk about all of the research that Dr. Daniel Amen has done with all of the scans of the brain, and just understanding the science behind it. And as you rightly said, it's more than just telling someone to pull their socks off. So, please just tell us a little bit more about the science so we can understand what it is.
Yes. So the things to look for. So as I said, most people think that depression is just feeling sad all the time. That's part of it. But let me just read you the list of symptoms and signs that a doctor, when they're talking to a patient, would ask about, just so that all of us who are in the public understand what depression actually looks like. So other than feeling sad, which can be part of it, but not necessarily, people lose the sense of joy and pleasure that they had in things that they normally enjoyed before. That's a big clue. They lose that pleasure, lose the joy in things that they normally enjoyed. But also they have things like guilt. So feeling guilty that they can't be as active as before, feeling guilty that they are a burden to society, burden to their family, feeling guilty that they don't have the energy, they don't have the motivation. And then they get to a point where they start hating themselves. It's called self-loathing, where they actually are angry with themselves. So with that anger also could come anxiety, worry about the future. Then actual physical things changes. So their appetite can change. They can either find that they lose their appetite or they eat more. It becomes like a comfort eating. Their sleep is disturbed. So they find that they can be losing sleep, or they just want to sleep all the time. It varies from person to person. But as we get to the more serious stages of depression, people start to feel helpless. They start to lose hope. Then they withdraw. They withdraw from friends, family. They isolate themselves. And then suicidal thoughts will start to become the predominant thing. And let me just read you what some people have written, Naomi. So people who have been in depression, who've written about it, or who've come through, describe it like this. They say it's like a gray cloud or a black cloak that comes over you and obscures all positive thought. You feel like you're being crushed. You're in absolute turmoil, despair. All you want to do is to be left alone. And you would, for that moment, prefer to be dead. So they come to a point where they convince themselves that their loved ones are better off without them. They come to a point where they think that the world is better off without them. And there's a sort of certain end stage with depression where they almost have detached from everything and they start to plan their ends. So they get their bank. So this is not everybody, but certain people, they plan, they sort out their wills and their bank accounts because they want to make sure their loved ones are looked after, and they plan their exit. So it's
signs of depression before. What are the clues at the early stages? And what's the difference between circumstantial depressions, where it's just, people are sad because their circumstances warrant them feeling sad, or where, as you said, where there's a change in the chemistry of the brain that's actually causing the depression?
Yes. So as a doctor, if I'm talking to somebody, I would ask them, how long have they been feeling down? So we all will feel down from time to time because life is like that. Life is stressful. Life brings events to our lives where we lose people, we lose things go wrong in our world. And it's normal. It's absolutely part of life that we have to feel sad, express our sadness. But when that sadness goes on and it's day in, day out for a minimum of, we say usually 2 weeks is the marker.
Oh, 2 weeks.
2 weeks of just feeling down, sad, but also losing energy. So when we're looking at family, friends, people in our world, we'll think, do they seem to have lost energy? Have they lost motivation? Do they seem to be not engaging with people as they used to? In other words, are they isolating themselves? Is the predominant speech that's coming out of their mouth one that's talks about not having hope? They can't see a way out of things. They can't see how anything's going to change. So listen to the language of what's coming out of their mouth. And if it seems to be quite different, if it's really negative, but in a way that also carries with it a sense of sadness, a sense of loss, of joy, or they've changed in a pretty sort of a recognizable way, then those are the clues. So it's a combination of all of those things, Naomi. It's rarely just one thing or another, but it's also a sense of, if you're the friend, to have that intuitive sense. An intuitive thing comes up in you where you just feel like something's not right with my friends, just something's not right with my family member. And that's when you've got to go with that and ask some questions.
That's so true, because so often when we may feel intuitively that something is not quite right, the other person, the friend, is in the process of pushing us away anyway.
Yes.
So, it's being intentional, as you said, about understanding that people will want to push you away, but understand that that's part of it, and we have to be intentional about,
absolutely.
Out at that time.
Yes.
And 2 weeks, I think that's quite to be consistently different in so many areas of your life for over 2 weeks is a good clue that
Yes.
that something is not quite.
Yes.
And I guess in many ways, in India especially, the whole concept of a depression having a finality, or not having, there isn't enough hope that people have in knowing that there can be something done about it. It's not a life sentence, that there is
Yes.
help and there is hope even
Yes.
when people are going through depression. So talk us through a little bit about that.
Yes. So when some, so it's a combination of things that makes people think that there's no future. One is that the person with depression, in the midst of it, as I said, the structures of the brain has changed somewhat. So the part of the brain that is able to think positively with hope about the future has started to shut down. So a person with depression can't see a future. But also society as a whole, because of historically, we've seen people with depression either be on medication all their lives, or sometimes they're put into an institution, locked away even, or we just see them sitting at home, topped up with medication, and we see no future. That's fed into all of us as a society, that it's like, a doom and gloom. It's like a death sentence.
Yes.
But again, here is the great news that neuroscience is now teaching us about depression, that those very structural changes that I said that can happen in the brain can be completely reversed.
Wow.
Completely reversed, because the brain is incredible. It has an ability called neuroplasticity, two abilities actually. One is called neuroplasticity, the ability for the brain neurons to regrow, to strengthen, to form new circuits. But also another ability, which is neurogenesis. Neurogenesis. It's just a fancy name. All it means is genesis, creation. New nerve neurons will start to form out of nowhere. Okay, so both those things are showing us that even if parts of our brains are shutting down, which they do in depression, under the right conditions, everything can regrow and you can come back to normal. Not only that, you can be better than you were before you went into the depression.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That is, yeah.
That is the great hope. That is the great hope.
Yes.
Now, I can talk to you in a moment.
Sorry. I read about Dr. Caroline Leaf and how
Yes.
she explains it kind of like almost like a forest of trees.
Yes.
That are either burnt away, and then, and explaining how the neurons are like trees that grow back in your brain. Is that kind of how, it is in your view?
That is exactly it. That is exactly it. And Caroline Leaf also talks a lot about, toxic thoughts are like trees in our brain that can affect the way we feel, the way we think. But when it comes to depression, there are many things that lead into someone getting depression. So it could be negative thinking that they've developed over a period of time, but it could be also just that they've grown up in a home where they saw mum or dad or a person in authority, their carer, having depression, or even just dealing with life in an unhealthy way. And I think this is probably a big problem with Asian cultures, in that we don't like to share our pain with our loved ones. We tend to sweep things under the carpet. We tend to pretend that everything's fine, because there's a big stigma associated with depression. It's like it's a taboo subject. No one wants to say, I'm struggling mentally, I'm struggling with my studies, my job is getting too much, I'm still haven't got over the death of my father, mother, my grandparent 2 years ago. People don't want to be open, so they're trying to put on a bright face, but actually, what's happening inside is that the depression is working itself. And often there's a trigger as well, something extra that happens that pushes the person who's already got an underlying depression into depression, full-blown clinical depression. But the reason I'm saying all that is because, you asked the question, can it be reversed? So what scientists and neuroscientists are showing is that it can be 100% reversed, but you have to do certain things with your life that are going to help you. So I can come into, so the number one thing is to see a doctor, but I can talk about that in a moment, and about medication. But really the strategy is about helping a person feel connected, helping a person feel like they've got some strategies to deal with negative things that happen in their world. Yeah, so it's a sort of a combined approach of doctor, family, community that will help a person not only just reverse the effects of depression, they can regrow their cells, regrow their neurons, and actually become stronger for their future.
Yes, that's incredible. Yeah. The thought that there are tools available that if you intentionally apply in your life, you don't have to go back to what you were, but you can go back to being better. That there is that
correct
hope that
absolutely.
So that is incredible, and I guess the way you've explained what happens in terms of the brain. That's fascinating. That's really fascinating. I guess you're so right about our cultures where, because of our situations and people's family backgrounds, a lot of the negativity and the mindsets can be adapted and adopted by people, which affects their minds. How do they get out of those negative mindsets into healthy ones that can help their brains regrow the right, and become healthy?
Yes. So I would say that probably the most helpful thing is to find a good counselor.
Find a good counselor, yes.
People actually need help to retrain the way they think. Okay, so now it could be that it doesn't have to be a professional counselor. They're probably the best because they're so equipped and they've learned, but it could just be a pastor. It could be a very wise friend, but you need someone that you trust who sits with you and they ask you, tell me what you think about your life. Tell me what you do when you hear bad news. How do you deal with that? So, it's like, it's similar to, say, an athlete who wants to improve their skills. Are you okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. So, if there's someone playing tennis or golf and they're hitting the ball in a particular way and it keeps going into the net or it keeps going off, they need a coach to come alongside and say, well, the reason why you keep hitting it wrong is because of your approach, of the way you've approached this, of the way you're doing your swing, the way you're standing. But if you do this, this, and this, and I'll journey with you in this, I'll help you to retrain the way you do your moves, they will change. And that's actually also neuroplasticity. The brain is also able to change even in sports and with music. I don't have time to go into all that, but if people Google neuroplasticity, they will see the amazing abilities of the brain to rewire itself, to retrain itself. But in the same way, if we can find someone to walk alongside us, a coach who helps us with how do we think about situations in life. Do we come across a problem and think, oh, poor me, oh, why does this always happen to me? Why is my life such a mess? Even in that one example, someone who's skilled may say, well, let's have a look at this situation. How about you approach it as if to say, well, this thing happens to lots of people, yes, but instead of allowing it to get me down, I'm going to try and get some wisdom on how to improve through this, how to find a way forward through this. Yeah. So it's the thing is, Naomi, it's difficult to do it alone when you're used to a particular way of thinking. And that's why I say you need someone to come alongside you to help you, journey with you, to change the way you think about situations of life, and even the way you think about yourself. Yeah. Because a lot of,
because people don't like to ask for help,
yes,
especially the taboo surrounding depression. In
yes,
India, I know especially, it's seen as you said, as a sign of weakness, or so just the fact that they don't want to ask for help, they don't get that coach alongside them saying, it doesn't have to be this way. You could
yes,
do this to get it better. So, I think you're so right in saying, get the help that you need, find a good therapist, a good counselor, even
yes,
someone who knows how to, knows CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, that can talk you
yes,
through that, so that you have the professional help that you need. And I guess
yes,
a lot of people don't also understand the science behind depression, and why medication plays a role, a positive role, in terms of being one
yes,
of the tools in that toolkit to
yes,
actually on the road to wellness.
yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the role of medication?
Yes. So before I talk about medication, I just want to just tell our folks a little bit of background, and then they'll understand why medication works. Okay. So what's gone wrong with depression, as I said earlier, is the brain structure has changed. Now, the thing is, our brains have got amazing chemicals called neurotransmitters, which are released day in, day out, every day, under right conditions, that help us to feel good about life, help us to have the feelings of enjoyment. So what science discovered maybe 10 or 15 years ago is there's a thing called the mind-body connection. So whatever's going on in our minds, our brains, releases chemicals that we feel good. So, for example, Naomi, if I said to you, I love the blouse you're wearing, I love your hairdo, or I said, Naomi, you're an amazing woman. The things that you do for the community. Now, just tell me, even in this few seconds, how do you feel? Like you're already smiling more?
Yeah.
But it releases a good feeling in your body.
Yes.
That feeling has been, you feel that feeling because my words, which you heard, have just released serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin in a big peak. It's just been released in your brain. And so that release in your brain of those neurotransmitters has caused a feeling to come up in your body. Okay. So, and there are lots of things that make those chemicals be released. Just being in a close family, being amongst people where you feel safe, where you feel loved, having good sleep, getting exercise, many, many things, and people should study this because you need to understand how the brain works. But what science has noticed, has realized, is that when people have depression, a whole lot of those neurochemicals are released in reduced amounts, especially serotonin. Okay, so that's why they feel symptoms in their body like low energy, can't be bothered, tired, guilt, even hating themselves. That's a lot of it is to do with our neurotransmitters. So what medication does is, so medication has been developed that works on the chemicals in our brain. So there are reasons to it. There's a scientific way in which they work, which I don't need to go into now. All you need to understand is that the medication allows serotonin and other chemicals to be around longer in our brains. So we start to feel a boost. We start to feel a little bit more positive. Now, medication isn't the cure-all, okay? So medication won't cure depression, but it helps you helps you to have motivation to get up in the morning, to do certain things that you need to do to live life until you find the root cause of your depression. Okay, so the analogy I like is this. Suppose someone breaks a leg.
Yes.
They've broken their leg. Now, you would see a doctor, wouldn't you? You'd get professional help. But what the doctor would do, yes, but what the doctor would do is they put a plaster cast to hold that leg in place until the leg gets healed from the inside. Okay, so antidepressant medication is like the plaster cast.
Yes,
You need it. Yeah, you need it in order to get on with functioning with your life in to some degree, but until the real healing comes on the inside. And the real healing comes really with the therapist, the counselor, with learning new habits of how to deal with situations, with even learning new habits of life, like eating regularly, looking after your sleep, getting proper exercise. So, you know, there are changes that one could do in life that actually help us to become resilient to depression. But, you know, that...
Isn't it?
To
become resilient to depression. If we can have...
and it's fully possible. But you've got to study the condition. You've got to learn the things that strengthen your brain. And then you've got to put them into practice.
Yes. That's incredible. If we sleep well, if our diet is good, we eat well, we exercise. Sleep is quite a huge pillar as well, isn't it? In terms of your mental health in general. Someone asked a question, why do anxiety attacks happen?
Okay, so the thing is, anxiety can happen in a person who doesn't have depression, but can also happen in a person with depression. Okay, so this is the thing about depression. It has lots of symptoms that go on with it. But sorry, just repeat the question. Why does somebody...
They just wanted to know why they have anxiety attacks, and if it,
why they have anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay. What anxiety is when the brain's alarm system has gone off. Okay, so let me just do a bit of explanation. The way that our brains are made is that we basically in life, we exist in one of two modes. We can either be in a rest and relax mode, which is what we're supposed to be most of the time, or we're in fight or flight. I think everyone's heard about fight and flight, fight or flight. And it's even called fight, flight, or freeze. But most of the time, when we're just doing life, we're in rest and relax mode. We have a routine, you know, we do certain things. We get up at a certain time, we eat at a certain time, and so on. But suppose at any given moment of time, you suddenly heard a loud noise that sounded like a gun or a bomb, or you suddenly saw a shadow and you thought, is that a burglar? Your brain quickly goes into fight or flight and prepares you to escape from the danger or fight the danger. Okay, so we have that, it's called a stress center, anxiety center. It's actually, the actual proper name is the amygdala. That's the part of our brain, which is a tiny little part of our brain, but it's very powerful. It's triggered when we sense danger, and it releases a whole lot of chemicals called stress chemicals in our body, like adrenaline, cortisol, various other ones, and pumps our body, prepares our body to escape or fight. Okay, so just think about it for a moment. If you or I were escaping a danger and we had to run out of the room that we're in, we need our hearts to pump fast to get blood around the body. Our lungs have to breathe much faster to get oxygen everywhere. So we've got a racing heart, we're breathing very fast, and various other things. But when the danger finishes, when we've escaped or we've overcome the enemy has gone, our bodies come into rest and relax mode. Okay? So that is normal. That is how we are made. Now, how about if we were in a situation where we are facing an invisible enemy all the time, such as work that never finishes, 100 emails that come into our inbox in the last hour, exam pressures.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, big one. Arguments. We're having arguments at home with our spouse, or we're hearing our parents arguing. We hear our parents saying there's not going to be enough money, or we don't have enough money. We're destitute. We are hungry. Many things that cause stress, we cause stress in our body. Our brain interprets that as there's a danger. I need to prepare this body to escape or fight. Okay, so what's triggered off is our stress response, which science calls anxiety. Anxiety is basically our stress response has been switched on, and the commonest reason is fear. Fear about what's going to happen, fear about the future, fear about how everything's going to turn out. Or we live in a stressful world without any break. There's no break, there's no hope, there's no let up. So
and it's real because your heart beats faster, your lungs, you don't have enough oxygen in your body. So it's very real, this physical symptoms of anxiety and, panic attack, things like that. That's so well, explained. Wow.
Yes, so it's as if, so on the inside, your amygdala thinks you are a gazelle being chased by a lion 24/7.
Yes.
Yeah. You on the outside, we're seeing, well, it's the family, it's exams or other pressures. But on the inside, your brain interprets it as, I am about to be eaten by a lion, I have to run.
Yes.
Okay,
and
so
yes.
And so anxiety is horrible. It's a horrible condition. But again, I can give some tips on this, but what people need to do is connect with a good therapist, a coach, a mentor that helps them to do practical things to help their body switch into rest mode, but also to do with the way we view life, the way we view challenges and things going on around us.
Yes, that's so important, because if our mindset is right, no matter what the challenges are or our current struggles are, even if we're real about it and say, okay, it's been a real struggle, either my family or my friends, where people are struggling, I know people are struggling with it, but they don't have to stay that way, that there is, and if our mindsets can change, and if we can get the help around us, then we can actually live a much better life. There's so much of hope even through pain, isn't there?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
amazing.
So much hope. And, over the years, I've seen so many people come free of anxiety, come free of depression. They've stopped having panic attacks. They've started to learn how to, as you say, the mind is the most powerful thing. Our minds are so powerful, and as I said earlier, the doctors have to call this thing the mind-body connection. That many physical conditions that people have had, ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome, asthma, even things like infertility. You'd think, infertility, what's that got to do with the mind? Again and again, science has shown us that not everyone with those conditions, so I don't want you to get the wrong impression that I'm saying everyone with those conditions is to do with the mind, but a significant number of people with those physical conditions, it can be put down to the way, what's going on in their minds, what's their approach to life, what they think about themselves. So yes, our minds are so important.
Yes. Another question we have is, how can I be a better friend to someone who's struggling with depression and who's just withdrawn from me?
That is such a great question, because you know, as I said earlier, as we want to help our loved ones, we want to help our friends, but in that desire to do good things for them, we can end up doing the wrong things without knowing it. Not because we are bad people, you know. Inherently, all of us, we're good people. We love to help, but it's been shown that there's some wrong things we can do. So let me just address those very quickly. Some of the wrong things we can do with someone who's got depression or even anxiety is to say, oh, come on, as you said, pull your socks up, cheer up. You
Not
know,
that bad.
yeah, you know, there's thousands of millions of children dying out there with starvation. At least you haven't got that. At least you're better than that. That is of no help. It's not going to help people with that condition. Here's what we know has helped people, both by testimony of what people have said have helped them, but also scientifically proven. Number one, top of everything, is that that person going through depression or anxiety needs compassion. They need to feel that you understand what they're going through. And even if you don't understand straight away, compassion looks like this. Hey, please tell me what you're going through. I just want to hear you now. Okay, so that compassion brings, number two, connection, human connection. Yeah, no human was ever created to live life in isolation, to live life alone. We were created to be in a community, in a family. Now, if our families are toxic, if our families are the problem, the source of our problem, that's when we look outside. So friends at school, or friends at church, or friends in another community, maybe even in your apartment block, there is somebody who you feel is a kind soul who will hear you. You know, you could reach out to them, or if you are in a community and you look and you observe that there's someone just seems to be down, reach out to them. Why is human connection so important? It's because, again, of the brain chemicals. Yeah. When I feel like someone is interested in me, someone is showing me love and consideration, it'll release in me oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, enkephalins, and I will start to feel better. I'll start to have some hope rising up. Okay? And so compassion, human connection. And the third thing is to just speak into their future. Because remember, people with depression especially are losing hope. So if I can speak to them, say, you know what, I just want to tell you, you may not feel this right now, but I think you're an amazing person. You have these gifts I see, and I just feel like, you know, your life could be so amazing. You have a destiny on your life. I can see you influencing in this area, in that area. You know, your gift could just help so many people. So initially that person will be like, yeah, whatever. I don't believe you. But just keep speaking it anyway, not in a like a bombarding way, but just at the right moment. Just say, you know, I just feel you are a wonderful person. You're unique. You're special. And just keep connecting with them. Keep reaching out, saying, how are you doing today? Can I just be I can just listen. I'm just a good listener. And so that's very important. We listen, and we don't try to fix them straight away. We don't try to contradict what they're saying. We don't even, so that's very important. So they might say, oh, my life is rubbish. You know, I hate myself. So a wrong response would be, of course your life's not rubbish. What do you mean? Look at what you've got. You know, you're a successful businesswoman, or you're a clever student, or, you know, you've got so much, you've got a car, you've got so much money in the bank. Arguing with them won't help them. Yeah. Instead, if they say, oh, I'm rubbish, I feel such a failure, you can say, gosh, I can imagine that must feel so painful. tell me about why you think that. Just allow them to express their innermost feelings. Just give them that ability to share what's really going on in them. And then somewhere along the line, you can say, but I know I hear you, but I just want to say that I think you're amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I just think you're an amazing person. I know you don't believe me right now, but I just want to say you're amazing. I love you. I love having you in my life. Yeah, so it's that sort of language that, so yes, someone's put their empathy.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't give sympathy. We don't say, oh, I feel so sorry for you. But we say, no, I want to understand what you're feeling.
Yes.
That's so good.
Yes, that's incredible. I mean, I think so often when people are going through difficult times, pain has a language of exclusion. And, you know, our goal really is to love them unconditionally, hear
Yes.
where they're coming from without any judgment, as you said. You know, we may not understand their pain, we may not
Yes.
feel it, but we want to hear it and give them a safe place that they can,
Yes.
you know, communicate what they're going through.
And Naomi, sorry, I just want to say one more thing with helping people to understand. So, you know, when someone has depression, again, if we look at the brain, the key parts of the brain that have shut down and not working so well are the front part of the brain where we think, we can reason, we can make judgments about, is this right or wrong? Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? That part is not working well. But what is fully on is actually their amygdala.
Okay.
Yeah, it's their fight and flight, where they're sensing that everything around them is dangerous. That's the part that's working well.
Yes.
But that part also makes the thinking part of the brain think only in black and white.
Yes.
It's a very kind of negative mindset. So if that, it helps to know that, because that's why we don't talk people out of it, because we have to understand that actually they can't help thinking and talking as they do. They can't actually help it because of what's going on in the brain.
Yes.
But what we do is we help them feel better by speaking words of life and hope. And we speak words of connection and love, which causes the good chemicals to be released, even in the part of the brain that is working well. Still, it can release all the good neurotransmitters. And in that feeling good, it helps them to just reach out for more help. It helps them to reach out to you again, tomorrow, the next day, until they get to a place where you say, hey, listen, I think you should see a doctor. I'll come with you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you need to phone, a crisis line, but I can be with you. I think you need to see a therapist, but I can go with you to that appointment. So it's like knowing that they've got somebody who's got their back, who's going to journey with them.
Yes.
That is the most important thing.
That's so powerful. I mean, compassion, compassion and with empathy, connection, and speaking life into people is so key. And, you know, for anyone that's struggling today, we have a list of places that you can get help. And we put it up on Desi Sisterhood. We also have therapists, Christian and others as well that you can reach out to and be a good friend to someone in need, and also self-care. Look after yourself. You know, help yourself and help others, so that you can live your best life and you can be better than what, if you are struggling with depression, you can have a better life when you go through and you have all the tools that you use. You can have a better future. It's so encouraging to talk to you, Lavanya. I know you have given us so much of your time, and time has just flown by. And so I'm so thankful to you. I just want to ask you one final question that people are asking. A lot of people in church life associate depression and the demonic and things like that. can you just shed some light so people understand that it really is you know, I know you've shared so much about the science behind it, but just to put people at rest about the fact that it's not just a spiritual condition, it's a physiological condition as well.
Yes, absolutely. And my approach, Naomi, to any of these conditions is that we have to have a holistic approach.
Yes.
Yeah. So I fully believe that in many cases of depression, anxiety, or any situation where we feel overwhelmed with things, there is an enemy. Yeah. So the Bible tells us there is an enemy, and he can send a force to come and oppress you. In addition to what's going on with your brain and with the chemistry, there can be an element of oppression. But it's rarely just one or the other. It's rarely just this or that. In my experience, it's a combination of things that are going on. Okay, so we know that the Bible says the enemy comes to kill, steal, destroy. Well, the enemy will use his tactics to steal our joy, to steal hope. So in my experience, and I'm talking as a medical doctor I've been a medical doctor for 37 years. As you know, I'm also a pastor in my local church. And I've done prayer for many, many years. For about 20 years, I've also been praying for people. This is my experience, that when you're helping someone with depression or anxiety or being overwhelmed or fear, is you have to help them practically with the community side. You have to get them to have medical help. It's like, the plaster cast of the broken leg. But then the prayer side comes into when you're dealing with what's at the root of the depression, what's at the root of the fear. And in my experience, I found that prayer helps enormously to deal with the root. And also prayer lifts off the oppression that the enemy can come and bring in to keep that depression or anxiety in place. And prayer also brings hope, because I found that in my Christian faith that my purpose for living comes when I connect with my Creator.
Absolutely.
When I connect with God and I find my purpose for living. So for me, I actually quit medicine and now I'm in full-time ministry because that was my purpose. So God told me, initially I was a doctor for many years, but in all those years of medicine, I learned how the brain worked, how the body worked. But that is now so useful for me when I'm now teaching on depression, anxiety. But I also know that without prayer, there's a limitation to how we can really fully help people. So that's what I would say, Naomi, we need a holistic approach, not just one or the other. And I think it's unhelpful for people to think about it in terms of demons and that sort of thing. That's not helpful. I think it's more helpful to think in terms of an oppression that the enemy can bring, like a darkness. Some people, the dark cloak, a shroud, but then we ask God to come in and lift off that oppression, and as well as doing all the other things that I talked to you about today.
That is incredible. I love your illustration about the cast, where you take care, put a cast on, and that's the role of the medicine, things like that. But the root cause and the inner healing comes through prayer and comes because, that's something that God does in each of our lives, bring healing. And then when the cast is removed, we find that we can walk again, we can run again, we can do everything that we were created to do, because we're people of destiny and purpose. And God has a plan for each one of our lives. He wants to enable us to live with purpose and every day enjoy this one life that we have.
That's right.
Have
That's
one
right.
life to live, one precious, beautiful life. And we want us all to really live our best life. Enjoy every day. Find happiness in the small things in life. Enjoy what God has given us. I love your conversation with me today. Really helped shed light on so many important issues. And I think compassion and empathy, connection, speaking life, and understanding the science behind depression and what the body does, the mind-body connection really helps, and helping us say the right things to our friends and not the wrong things. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Lavanya. You have been such a blessing. We really thank
Yes.
you. It's been
Naomi,
yes.
before I finish, I just want to say one thing, which I don't know if I said this properly, but if someone's watching today and you've got depression, or you think you may have depression, and you've heard some of the symptoms, I would say to you, speak up. Speak to somebody. Don't suffer in silence. Connect with somebody. Connect with Naomi. Connect with folk, whoever is in your world, because you can be helped. There is hope for you.
There is hope. There is hope in depression. And guys, if you want to learn more and understand more, please go to Dr. Dua's website. It's drdua.com. I put a link in it as well in the bio so that you can learn more. And, thank you so much. You are such a blessing to us. Thank you for your time and this conversation. We really enjoyed that. I know we've taken a lot of your time, but thank you. And we look forward to many other conversations in the future with you, Lavanya.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We will post the details about where you can get help on the site as well. So whether it's the Samaritans or the NGOs in India that you can access, please seek help from the community that you're in as well. Know that we're all here for you. Direct message me. We connect you. We want you to live a good life. We want you to be healthy and strong. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lavanya, as well. God bless you. And we look forward to meeting again in the future. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.